Welcome to Mystery Bible. My name is Ken Primus. I am your host. We have been looking at the life of these two brothers, Esau and Jacob. We have been looking from different sources such as Josephus. We looked at Yasher. We are pulling from Legend of the Jews and other materials that we're getting from there, the Bible as well. We are getting a better picture to some of the human dynamics that was happening within this family, within these brothers, and also the parents. What we're going to do is pick up with Jacob and Laban, and Laban is his mother's brother. She sent him to his house to go and live so that he can get away from his brother. And we are going to pick up, we had stopped one podcast earlier, talked briefly about what happened at the well when he got there and he encountered Rachel, how he kissed her. He was excited because from our studies, we saw the reason why he was excited when he finally connected to this family was the fact that Esau's son and a couple of his men were trying to kill him, but God gave them favor. God gave him favor, and they saved his life. We're going to pick up from, going to look at Genesis chapter 29, and we're going to take a look about this family now that he's here with Laban and how he's received there and what happens in there. As usual, we'll go around with different projects as far as books and collect other information. But we'll be right back after this message. Welcome back to Mystery Bible. We're going to pick up Bible and we are going to look at Jasher and the Legend of the Jews. We're going to try and dance back and forth to get a better picture of what's going on here with this family as Jacob makes his entrance in here. We see that in the Bible, he comes and he met some people at the well. He is talking to them. They said that, Laban's daughter is coming. Ask her, which is Rachel. He spoke to her. He's excited. He's telling her, who he is, and she runs, brings her father, and it tells us in verse 13, and it came to pass when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house, and he told Laban all these things. And what things did he tell him? And we see that all the things that he talked was from when you look at the Legend of the Jews, he's telling him about all the stuff that took place, what his mother did, and the animosity between him and his brother Esau. So he told him pretty much everything. And after he told him all the things that what his mother had done, how he got the blessing, and all of those things we see in the book with the Legend of the Jews. And so let me take you to chapter 7 of that. It says, now Laban promised to treat him with great humanity. This is after he heard all that he heard from him, both on account of his ancestors and particularly for the sake of his mother, towards whom he said he who would show his kindness even though he kept her absent. One of the things that he told him that he had received the blessing. And we talked about that. This particular blessing helps you and I to become wealthy. And we saw that trickled all the way through into different lives of men and women. We saw it come into Noah. We see it come into Abraham, and then we see it coming into his sons, passing down, and that's where Isaac and then Jacob and his mom came up with that. So told him that he got the blessing. And so Laban promised to take care of him, for he assured him he would make him the head of his shepherd of his flock. At the time, he didn't have any sons. And so he was very excited to have this man here because all of his daughters doing all of the shepherd work. As you see, Rachel was the one that was bringing the sheep to get the water and so he's excited about having this man in his family. The book of Yasher tells us a couple other things. And we know that this is the account that it gives as far as the meeting between Jacob and Laban. And Jacob related to Laban what his brother Esau had done to him and what his son Eliphaz had done to him in the road. And Jacob resided in Laban's house for a month. And Jacob ate and drank in the house of Laban. Afterwards Laban said unto Jacob, Tell me what shall be your wages, for how canst thou serve me for nothing? And so we see now that he is going to institute this contract with Jacob for work. And so Laban, let me read, this is in chapter 30 in Yasher. Let's look at the contract in here. And it says, it tells us a couple of other things. It says, And Laban had no sons, but only daughters, and his other wives and handmaid were still barren in those days. And these are the names of Laban's daughter, which his wife Adonah had borne him. The names were, the eldest is Leah, and the younger, was Rachel. Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored, and Jacob loved her. And so we see that what his response as to these two daughters, it tells us that he loved Rachel. And Jacob said to Laban, I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. And Laban consented to this, and Jacob served Laban 7 years for his daughter Rachel. And in the 2nd year of Jacob's dwelling in Haran, that is, in the 79th year of his life of Jacob, in that year died Eber, the son of Shem. He was 464 years old at his death. And so this is I think this is the last of those men that are documented in the Bible that had a long lifespan. And you guys, those who have followed me, I talk about global warming, as they say. It is not a new phenomenon. It is believed that global warming happened at the flood. The comet came, crashed into the earth, and split the continent, and the continent separated. We also had water coming up. This was a very traumatic situation. I did the study on the flood, and it's all in there. I went and I found lots of scientific proof to show that this particular incident happened with a comet coming and crashing and causing all of this damage alongside. It was the perfect storm, basically. And as a result, the continent shifted and we created what we have today. But Eber, he was the son of Shem, and we know that those guys were living 400, 600, 900 years. After that incident with the flood, it was several generations after that you see that the age of man dropped. And so when you look at Abraham at 100 and something years old, not having kids, and people are panicking saying he's old, he is actually young compared to generations before him. It was like 2 generations before this stuff. And this man, Eber, was the last of them. And he lived, it's documented, 464 years old at his death. After that, when men were coming in, clocking in at 170, 180, stuff like that. And then it started dropping even lower and lower as time goes by and where we are today. So I wanted to stop and just give you some of that information. That is not given in the Bible. So we know that this Eber had died, not mentioned in the Bible. But let's continue. I want to read, and then I'm going to jump between the Bible and the book of Yasher and the legend of the Jews. So, and it says, and when Jacob heard that Eber was dead, he grieved exceedingly and lamented and mourned over him many days. And in the 3rd year of Jacob's dwelling in Haran, Basmat, the daughter of Ishmael, the wife of Esau, bare him a son, and Esau called his name Ruel, or Reuel. So we see that his brother has another kid, and in the 4th year of Jacob's residence in the house of Laban, the Lord visited Laban and remembered him on account of Jacob. Sons were born unto him, and his firstborn was Beor, his second Alib, and third was Horash. And the Lord gave Laban riches and honor, sons and daughters, and the man increased greatly on account of Jacob. So that is the account that we have in as far as Jacob, what is going on in his life, and also in Laban's family as a result of Jacob coming in to the family with the blessing. And we see that the blessing that is on his life is spilling over into Laban's family and bringing him blessings, multiplying. One of the things of the blessing, multiply and replenish. And so we see it manifesting in this family as a result of Jacob being there. And the Lord gave Laban riches and honor, sons and daughters. And the man increased greatly on account of Jacob. This is at verse 20. And Jacob in those days served Laban all manner of work in the house and the field. The blessing of the Lord was all that belonged to Laban in the house and in the field. So we're looking at this thing manifesting in his life because of this young man. Well, he's not young according to us. But let's take a look and continue reading. And in the 5th year, we see that Jehudid, the daughter of Beeri, the wife of Esau in the land of Canaan, and she had no sons, but daughters only. And these are the 9 names of the daughters. So it's giving an account of Esau's family. We see that Esau's family is growing as a result. He is separated from his brother, and they're just giving us account of what's going on in his brother's life at the same time. And so I want to go back into the Bible and pick up and show you what's going on there. And we'll see, again, the Bible doesn't tell us a lot of the things, but Book of Yasher does, and I want to bring the combination as we go back and forth so you'll get it all together so we can get the picture of what's going on. So it's giving us some detail as to Esau's family. It's giving us some detail in the family of Laban as a result, and we are seeing what's happening because Jacob, the riches and all of the things that are coming into this house because of the blessing. Because as I mentioned to you, he told Laban he had it and it was with him, and it's now being manifested. So the point that you can see it, and the blessing, I tell you guys, can be seen. It is known. And so let's pick up in the Bible in book of Genesis chapter 29, and we know that Laban had 2 daughters. The name was elder was Leah. We know all that stuff. And so Laban gave unto his. Okay, so here we go. He served his 7 years, and this has always been fascinating to me about this incident that happened. So he's here. He got it to his 7 years, and he goes and he says to Laban, "Give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go into her." And Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah his maid for an handmaid. So he gives his daughter Leah Zilpah, and it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, "What is this that thou hast done unto me? Did not I serve you for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me?" And Laban said, "It must not be so done in our country, to give the younger for the firstborn. Fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years." So he deceived him, comes up with another plan. He says, "Give me 7 more years, and I will give you Rachel." Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel, his daughter, to wife also. Laban gave to Rachel, his daughter, Bilhah, his handmaid, to be her maid. And he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. So he's married to both sisters. He's in love with one. He doesn't care much for the other. It says that in the Bible, it says that he hates her, that she's hated. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren, and Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, surely the Lord has looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me also. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, because the Lord has heard this, that I was hated, he has therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, now this time will my husband join unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name Levi. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she said, now will I praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah, and left bearing. And so from this point on, we are going to see now this competition between the sisters to have sons and have offspring with Jacob. And when Rachel saw that she bore up no children, Rachel envied her sister and said unto Jacob, give me children, or else I'll die. Jacob was angry. He was angry with Rachel, and he said, am I God? Am I God who has withheld from thee fruit of thy wombs? What can I do about it? And she said, behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. We've seen this before. Saw this with Sarah, and we know the result of that. So let's continue looking here. It said, and she gave him Bilhah, her handmaid, to wife, and Jacob went in to her, and Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God has judged me, and has also heard my voice. He's given me a son, therefore called his name Dan. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again, and bare Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, with great wrestling have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. Sorry, I apologize, Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Bilhah, her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zebulah's maid bare Jacob a son. So we see this competition started, this sister. And so I keep telling you guys, I hear people complain about family dynamics and dysfunctional family. All that is in the Bible is dysfunctional family. That's all you read. And yet God is working with this dysfunctional family, as he will work with yours as well. And so when Leah saw that she had left bare, she gave his handmaid, and she began to give son. And so Leah said, happy am I, for the daughters which came called me blessed. And she called his name Asher. She got another son through Zebulun. And Reuben went in those days of the wheat harvest, and found mandrake in the field, and brought them unto his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrake. Now the mandrake is it's a plant that in those days it was used to help to get people pregnant. It was believed that it was able to do that. And so, to help people, or it promote contraception, or, so she saw it, she got excited and made the statement requesting it. And she says, this is what her sister said. And Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrake. And she said unto her, is a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? And wouldest thou take away my son's mandrake also? And Rachel said, therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrake. And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him and said, Thou hast come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee son's mandrake. And he laid with her that night. So Rachel makes a deal. Give me the mandrake. You can go into and sleep with him that night. She take him up. She takes the deal, and then she goes and sleep with him. And it tells us in the Bible in verse 17, and God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bare Jacob a fifth son. So we see that this woman Leah keeps getting pregnant, and God keeps blessing her. And Leah said, God has given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. And Leah said, God has endured me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulun. And afterward she bare a daughter, and she called his name Diana. And God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her and opened her womb. So we're going to take a break right here, and we're going to come back and pick it up from that spot. But we see this competition, as I mentioned, between these sisters, and Jacob and his family is growing. And so we are now going to take a look at what's going on within him, Laban, as all of this stuff begins to happen. So we'll take a break right after this, and we'll come back and talk more about it. But back to Mystery Bible, we're going to continue looking at this family. We're getting a glimpse of Esau, what's happening in Esau. We're getting a glimpse as to what's happening in Laban. We're getting a glimpse as to what's happening with Jacob and his family. Here's the competition amongst the sisters, as they say, getting kids and who's having more kids and all of that type stuff. And we stopped at with Rachel when it tells us that God remembered her. And so I want to do a couple of things. I want to take a look and see what's happening with Esau some more, so that we can get as to what's going on around the time with these brothers and around the time with the family as well, so we can get a good glimpse of what's happening here. And it's a lot of stuff that is going on. We last left about the mandrake incident when she made a deal with her. Rachel made a deal with Leah, and as a result, Leah got pregnant and had a couple more sons. She has 6 sons so far, and it tells us that God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her, opened her womb. And that is in verse 22 of Genesis 30. So let's go back in now. We're going to take a peek and see what was going on at the same time with his brother and with Esau. And we see that Esau, there's a couple of things happening within his family, and he's prospering as well. And as a result of his prospering, things began to happen in his life. And so, in the book of Yasher, we see the things about his family, and started from chapter 30, and we are looking at verses 23. And Jehudah died. Esau rose up and went to Seir to hunt in the field as usual. And Esau dwelt in the land of Seir for a long time. And in the 6th year, Esau took for a wife, in addition to his other wives, Laban, the daughter of Zebron, the Hivite. And Esau brought her to the land of Canaan. And it tells us that she conceived. She gives him 3 sons, Yashur, Yalan, and Korah. And in those days in the land of Canaan, there were a quarrel between the herdsmen of Esau and the herdsmen of the inhabitants of the land of Canaan. For Esau's cattle and goods were too abundant for him to remain in the land of Canaan in his father's house, and the land of Canaan could not bear him on account of his cattle. And when Esau saw that his quarreling increased with the inhabitants of the land of Canaan, he rose up, took his wives and his sons and his daughters, all belonging to him, and the cattle which he possessed, and all his property that he had acquired in the land of Canaan, And he went away from the inhabitants of the land of Seir. He went to the land of Seir, and Esau and all his belongings to him dwell in the land of Seir. From time to time, Esau would go and see his father and mother in the land of Canaan. And Esau intermarried the Horites, and he gave his daughters to the sons of Seir, the Horites. And he gave his elder daughter, Mizreth, to Anna, son of Zebulun, his wife's brother. And Hupith he gave to Azar, the son of Belhan, the Horite. And Esau dwelt in the mountains, and he and his children, and they were fruitful and multiplied. So we're seeing what's happening in his life. In the 7th year, Jacob's service, which he had serviced Laban, completed, and Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, and we talked about that. And so that's what was happening with Esau. Let's go back into the Bible, and we see again the battle between the sisters for his attention, and also for conceiving sons and so forth. And we see, as I mentioned in verse 22, it says, and God remembered Rachel. Let's take a look at that. We're going to pick up and go from there. And she conceived and bare him a son, and said, God has taken away my reproach. I'm sure she must have been going through a lot of stuff too. Think about it for a minute. Everyone around her is getting pregnant. It doesn't matter what happens. Everyone. And so I'm sure the pain that was in this woman's heart as she was not able to give her husband a child, and he loved her, and she of course loved him. And I'm sure that this particular news of her being pregnant must have sent her into a joyful state. So she conceived, bare him a son, and said, God has taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph. And so we know about him. We'll read about him later. And said, the Lord shall add to me another son. So she's prophesying. She's calling it out since she got pregnant. Might as well. Came to pass when Rachel had born Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, send me away, that I may go unto mine own place and to my own country. So he wants to go back home. Give me my wives and my children, whom I have served thee, and let me go, for thou knowest my service, which I have done thee. And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake. So he recognizes power of the blessing is on Jacob and how it's manifested in his life. And we see that this man is absolutely a greedy man and corrupt, because he was very deceitful in how he treated him. And but still he stayed. So now watch what he does. He says, and he said, appoint me thy wage, and I will give it. So he's now going to make a deal. He says, hey, man, I see this blessing on you. Don't leave yet on some more of what is coming from this blessing. And so this is what Jacob does, and it is actually a beautiful move from him. And we'll see why he did what he did. But let's see first the deal that he said. And he said unto him, notice how I have served you, and how thy cattle was with me. For it was little which thou hast before I came, and it is now increased unto a multitude. And the Lord has blessed you since my coming. And now when I shall provide my own house also, how am I going to provide for myself? He's saying. And he said, what shall I give thee? And Jacob said, thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep your flock. And so makes this deal. I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goat, and of such shall be my hire. So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it shall come for my hire before thy face. Every one that is not speckled and spotted amongst the goat, and brown amongst the sheep, shall be counted stolen with me. And Laban said, behold, I would it might be according to your word. And he removed that day goat and that were ring-stake and spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown amongst the sheep, and gave them into the hands of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob. And Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock, and Jacob took his rod of green poplar and of a hazel and chestnut tree, piled white stakes in them, and made the white appeared, which was in broad. All this stuff you see that he's doing, he got the information in a dream, and an angel came and told him about this. So, as I mentioned to you guys, this blessing is on this man. And the blessing will cause you to have dreams that will bring you money, bring you wealth. Many of you out there, I'm telling you, there's untold wealth yet to come for the church, on behalf of the church. God has to trust us with that. He said, "You're faithful with little, we will get the much. But if we're not faithful with little, he's not going to give it to us." And the reason why he is going to do this, there's the Bible talks of a wealth transfer coming, and the purpose of that wealth transfer is for one thing. The scripture says that Jesus will not come until the gospel of the kingdom is preached. So the money that is coming to us is to bring the gospel of the kingdom. We are also to take that money and change the systems that are governing this world, the system that the Antichrist has put in place, and he is burdening people down with those systems. We see the burden that is within the justice system, the judicial system, the economic system, the healthcare system, you name it. All of the systems that are out there, we see the tremendous injustice that is being done, and God hates that tremendously. He hates injustice. This is one of the things that he does hate. But we will take a look and see that this blessing that will be upon you and those that are in the end days to do the will of the Father. And I've told you guys before, Isaiah 61, if you go to Isaiah 61, I think it is, or 62, and Jesus quotes, I think Isaiah 61, I can't think about it today, where he quotes what the Spirit of the Lord has done on his life. And then he stops in verse 2, and the rest of that chapter, 61, it's our responsibility, and that is about changing systems and the day of vengeance look like upon the kingdom of darkness. So we have work to do, but we have to show ourselves faithful. So he makes this deal with Laban and about the ring stake and spotted animals and so forth. And Laban separates himself from him. And Jacob, 3 days journey, he left him some flocks. Jacob begins to do this thing with these rods. And he said he set the rod which he had piled before the flock in a gutter in the watering throw. When the flock came to drink, they would conceive when they come to drink. When they came here, they started conceiving speckled animals and so forth. All their offsprings were ring-stake, speckled, spotted, and all this thing as a result of doing this. And the flock conceived before the rod and brought forth cattle, ring-stake, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lamb and set the faces of the flock towards the ring stakes, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. And he put on his own flock by themselves, and so he's separating the two flocks. And as a result of all of these things happening, there were more being born of this strange colors and stuff like that. And it came to pass, whenever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rod before the eyes of the cattle in the gutter, and that they may conceive amongst the rod. And the cattle were feeble, put them not in, so that the feeble were Laban's and the stronger Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly and had much cattle and maidservants, and men servants, and camels, and asses. The product of the blessing, guys. Genesis 31. And he heard the words of Laban's sons saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father, and of that which was our father's has he gotten ill all this day. So they're looking at him. They're not happy. They're seeing that this wealth transfer is taking place before their eyes. And that is why I told you guys, there's a wealth transfer coming to, and the Bible really talks about that. There's scriptures in there, Lamentations and a couple of other scriptures that speak specifically to the wealth transfer, where God burdens one to gain all of the wealth, and then he gives it to another, and he gives it to those that are faithful, or those who are walking in faith. So we're looking at wealth transfer right here in the end of Genesis chapter 30, 31, and the sons began to recognize it. And the Lord said to Jacob, return unto the land of thy fathers and to thy kindreds, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent Rachel and Leah field unto his flock, said unto them, I see your father's countenance. It is not towards me as before, but the God of my father has been with me. And you know that with all my power I have served your father. So the sons got into Laban's ears, said these things, and he changed. And he is now envious of him. And he calls his wife, Jacob calls his family, talking to the sisters, and you know, with all my power I serve your father. And your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But God, suffer him not to hurt me. If said thus, the speckle shall be thy wages, and then all the cattle bear speckle. And if he said thus, the ring stake shall be thine hire, and then bear all, and that thus God has given away the cattle of your father and given them to me. The wealth transfer. Here it is. And it came to pass at that time that the cattle conceived, and I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, behold, a ram which leaped upon the cattle for a ring stake, speckled and whistled. And the angel of the Lord spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here am I. And he said, Lift up your eyes and see all the ram which leaped upon the cattle and the ring stake, speckled and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laban did to you. I am the God of Bethel. Thou anointest the pillar where thou vowedest a vow unto me. Now arise, get you out of this land, and return unto the land of your kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted him strangers? For he has sold us, and has quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which God had taken from our father, that is ours and our children. Now then, whatsoever God has said unto thee, do it. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camel, and carried away all his cattle and all his goods, which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting he had gotten in from land. And to go Isaac his father and the land of Canaan. So he's heading back home to his father. And Laban went to share heap, and Rachel had stolen image that were his father, stole away unaware Laban to Syria, in that told him not that he had fled. So he fled with all that he had. He rose up and passed over the river, and set his face towards Mount Gilead. And it was told Laban on the 3rd day that Jacob was fed. And he took his brethren with him, and pursued after him 7 days' journey, and they overtook him in the Mount of Gilead. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night, and said unto him, Take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. Then Laban over Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mount of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, carried away my daughters as captive, taken the sword. Wherefore did thou flee away secretly and steal away from me? Didst not tell me that I might have sent thee away with myrrh and marathon with song, with tabret and with harp, and has not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Thou hast done foolishly in so doing. It is in the power of my hand to put you hurt. The God of your father spake unto me yesternight, saying, Take thou heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And now thou wouldest need to go, because thou sore longest after thy father's house. Yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? Jacob answered and said to Laban, Before I was afraid, for I said, Peradventure thou wouldest take by force your daughters from me. Whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live before our brethren. Discern that what is thine with me, and to make it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. So we see, again, stuff happening within his family. And Laban went into Jacob's tent and Leah's tent and into the two maidservants' tent, but he found them not. And he went out into Leah's tent and he entered into Rachel's tent. Rachel had taken the images, put them in a camel's furniture, and sat upon them. And Laban searched all the tent, but found them not. And she said to her father, Let it not displease my lord that I cannot raise up for thee, for the custom of woman is upon me. And he searched upon, found nothing. So she says she's having her period. She put these images under the camel, and she's sitting on there. And Jacob was wroth and shrouded with Laban. And Jacob answered and said unto Laban, Is my trespass? What is my sin? Thou hast so hostilely pursued after me, whereas thou hast searched all my stuff. Where hast thou found all thy household stuff? Set it here before brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge between you and me. This 20 years have I been with you. So we see the total amount of years that he spent totally with this man, and he deceived him 7 times, sometimes changed his wages, all kinds of stuff. We see that he had done. So what we're going to do is pick up when we come back in the next episode at this place right here, because it's getting lengthy as far as the podcast. But I want to thank you guys for following with me, because I want to take you through the Bible just chapter by chapter. Learn from it. Learn all the policies and procedures. As I tell people, those are the things that we learn as we are now part of this new kingdom. I says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and we are seeking God to gain policies and procedures, because we are new citizens within this kingdom. It is my hope that as we walk through the Bible, learn and we delve into a lot of the mysteries in it, that there is lots hidden there. Cultures came out of there. There lots of stories. The book of Job talks of unicorns, Leviathan. These are real creatures that out there that the Bible talks about, and there's a lot of other creatures that are in there in the Word of God that the church is afraid to talk about. Their dragons, all those things that are there, metaphors. These were real things, and we will see them as we continue to study the Word. And so I want to challenge you guys to share the podcast, invite people so that we can grow. I thank you, all those that are supporting me financially, and I pray for you guys daily. Thank you so much, and I'll get to you in the next podcast.